Okay, today we're going to go over painting some of our fairy figurines. So if you have a fairy or gnome or an elf that you have purchased and they come a little bit plain like this one, I'm going to show you how you can add some acrylic paint and then seal it for outdoor use so you can add more dimension and believability and just absolute fantasy realism to your miniature displays. So come on, let's get going. Okay, so I kind of wanted to touch this fairy up and give her face a bit more direction and color, and I wanted to change this hat and bow here more to a green. And so I just kind of wanted to take you through that process because sometimes you get, well, many times actually, you get your figurines that don't have a lot of detail because honestly, I believe that these are all hand painted. And so if you don't get a figurine that has that kind of detail, it's something that's really nice to add in. And so I wanted to mention also that if you have lots of hair or dreads like I do, it's very important to have yourself a clip and bring that back. Important when you're using paint, but I have special rules for when I'm using any saws or even sanders or anything that spins, even just like my rotary tool. You definitely don't want to use anything like this that spins because your hair can get stuck in it and that can be devastating results. So just wanted to kind of throw that little safety tip in there. If you happen to have, now looks like her wings are a little bit off back here, but we can touch that up with paint. So I'm gonna get started on her. Now this pink looks way too pinkish. So I always have a bit of white and some different shades of brown. Let's see. You definitely want to have some lighter colors to mix in because then you can take something that's kind of like this pink bubblegummy color and add a bit of this beige to it, and you're going to get a far nicer color that will be more realistic. I mean, if you've got, you know, a pink unicorn or something, then perhaps this sort of bubblegummy pink will work well. But if you want a natural color, this is going to go a whole bunch better. So it just has a pink hue. Because, I mean, unless you've got lipstick on, your pink lips aren't really pink either. And oftentimes when you're painting these teensy-weensy little details, I have lots of really small brushes, but you definitely want to have some toothpicks also on hand. They're kind of my invaluable tool. And you can get them so inexpensively. Sometimes you might think, oh, I can just use a stick, but these are always the same size and shape, and I really find it helpful to have them around. Now, I think I want to darken this a little tiny bit. So I'm going to take this and add just a wee bit of that darker brown in there. Excuse me. Okay, that is going to be way too big. Excuse me, goodness. Frog in my throat today. All right. There. That way you can add a little bit of depth into her mouth without kind of making her look sort of clownish. Just have to really touch up each one bit by bit and make sure that it's the way you want it to look. And oftentimes, it's nice to see it through your phone or through a magnifying glass. So I get a nice big wide one like this so you can really zoom in and see. So yeah, I've got a little bit in the wrong spot there, don't I? Okay. So we're just going to take that. Lots of times when it's not really dry yet, you can just kind of rub and get that back. And after all of this is painted, I highly recommend giving it a coat of the spar urethane, but water-based. And you can use whichever matte or gloss that you like for your figurines. Okay. Now I wanted to go, I'm going to get some water. All right. Because I really like to work with the paints kind of thick rather than having them too watery. But on the wings here, I'm actually going to use a very watered down approach, because what you can do, oh boy, that's really green. I think that might be a little too grassy green. Let's go to this one. I try to choose colors that match well with my aesthetic, but you choose what you like. And that's what's nice when you get a figurine that's kind of off. You can adjust it to suit the palettes of your garden a whole bunch better. Oh, that's much, much better. Okay, so when you have these little areas like this that are kind of indented, you can put it in like this and then just rub it off. And that way the darker green is going to stay in those indented places. A very easy way to paint them. Look at that. And that way it's almost foolproof. You know, you're not going to mess it up too much, which I find wonderful, because if it can be messed up, I will do it at a certain point. Okay. See how nice that looks? And then we can take and do this. I messed that all up. So we'll go to another fairy and then we'll go back to the first one so that you can actually see what I'm doing. I went out of frame. Sorry. Okay. 8 trillionth time is a charm. We are going to repaint this fairy because I was out of frame. Then I found I was out of frame yet again, and then the camera turned off. So I've had issues today. But we're going to try this girl. Again, we're using acrylic paint, and I just want to add some dimension to the face here. So as you can see, I'm using a very, very tiny brush. Hopefully you can see that well in the camera. And then as flat as you can get it so that it stays in between her lips here, because I just want to add a little bit of dimension so you can see that she has a face. A little too wet there. I just got my brush wet. Don't be afraid to take your time before you put your brush on, because once you're there, it's almost like you can go quickly too much. And as you see, I have the toothpick right under me. Those are very handy to use in these really teensy-weensy areas. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now, when you think you've got it right, it's nice to get a magnifying glass and make sure, like this. Hopefully you can see how she looks there. A little bit off, but it looks okay. If you get too nitpicky about it, you will find yourself going over too much and you'll end up with blurred colors. So keep that in mind. Just do your best. Now, her eyes. I think that she has a little bit of this blue color in here. So I am going to attempt to kind of match that blue color. It almost has a bit of this yellow in it. Let's see, I need a thicker brush. And maybe a little bit of this kind of maybe white or beige. No, that's going to make it yellowy. Well, it is kind of yellowy. Let's put the beige with it and see. Okay. Oh, I like that. That looks very similar. Yes, I like that. Yes, and then that kind of goes in with the dress as well. Yeah. Oops. That is just right. So, since we've kind of added a bit more of this blue in there, I can kind of add that, I feel like, into the wings as well. So let's see how that goes. Maybe if I kind of spread it in there. And then we'll see if we can deepen those other lines. Oh, that's nice. Just to add that hint of blue. That looks great. I'm gonna go a little bit deeper on the blue in the center so that you can sort of accentuate that color. Okay, and that's just this blue and beige sort of together, because that's kind of what is in there. Oh, I really like how that comes out on the front. Look at that. So we can add a little more of that beige. Oh, I love that. Really pretty. Yes, that is just delightful. And so we'll give her blue eyes as well. I was kind of looking at this pot that she's holding. I'm supposing it's supposed to be flowers. I wonder if my embossing gun is on. Let's see. Oh, yes, it is. What do you think? Let's see. If we actually wet this a little bit, I bet that we could use some embossing powder on there. Let me see if I can kind of dry the paint a little bit. Because then we can go over that area with the embossing powder, and I think that'll look like she's holding something really magical. So when you're going to use that on something like this, you just have to kind of get it wet, and then your embossing powder has something to stick to. Okay. So now we're going to open this up. I thought this copper color would go really, really well. And so I'm just going to take my little spoon here, and then we just spoon it over, and it's only going to stick to the areas that I have moistened with the water. Okay. There we are. We can always add more. Oh, that really is nice. So it adds just a bit more sparkle. Ooh, it's starting to get hot. So once that really melts, it's going to really highlight that. There we go. With a nice metallic look. All right. I hope that you can see where that just brings out that little bit of pop. Oh, I love how she looks now. All right, now we need to give her her eyes. So I think we should go, well, I guess we could use this blue. It's not too bad for an eye color, is it? Especially since she's a fairy. Just dot very, very carefully with the end of your toothpick right in the eye pocket there. And it doesn't have to be a lot. You're just going to imply some color. Otherwise, you will end up with way too much. So hopefully we just get it right in there. There. And she just has a nice blue eye. Now I think that that needs a little tiny bit of that dark brown, but almost very, very watery. Just to kind of darken, almost looks like she doesn't have eyebrows. There we go. We're just going to kind of darken her eye a little bit. It looks kind of like it's non-existent. There. All right, can you see her face really nice now? Very good, very good. And the wings, and I really like how we brought out the blue in her hat. Looks like that other eye needs a little bit more blue. Ah, it's because of the cheek. Okay, so if you look really close, it's her cheek that got a little bit of that blue on there. Can you see it? Focus camera. So what we want to do is fix that up. So I'm just going to take some skin color and I'm going to add that right on her eyelid, right there, so that it blends a little bit better. Perfect. That's great. See how that touched it up? And then this fairy is now ready to have a sealant of clear matte spray paint, or you can use a water-based spar urethane, and you could do that in either matte or satin. Gloss would look kind of weird, but something so that your paint stays stable outside in the wind and rain and everything. And we'll switch back to the other fairy now so that you can see what she looks like, but I just worked out of frame far too much. Because you really want to get them correct. If you had a, trying to get this to focus here and where I can see. Okay, focus camera. Just dot the littlest dot of paint will do. And you can always dot like I just did on an extra surface. Don't dot right away, because, let me go a little darker. What happens is you'll get a big blob in there. You just want to give the hint of eyes. There. Very nice. Okay. I'm quite pleased with that. And I'm just going to throw a little bit more of that green around the edge here. I feel like the wings need a little more depth, and they looked a little still too white. There, that's a little better. This one here, and this one here. Okay. There. So see how much more personality she has than at the beginning? I hope I'm doing this in a way that you can see her clearly. See? So go ahead and paint your piece. Now, she would be perfect to use, like I said, for a just splash of clear matte spray paint, but let this dry for a good 12 to 24, then do your coating that's going to keep her protected for outdoor use. So I hope that gets you started. Remember to stay safe when you're using any of your tools, whether it be paint or sanders or saw blades, anything like that. Keep your hair or any items of clothing away from being caught in and spiraled in. And it also helps to keep you clean as well. And remember to always seal your completed pieces with some sort of varnish or sealant or spray paint, at least, so that they stay very, very crisp and clean lines while they're outside in your fairy gardens. Until next week, happy fairy gardening.